It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 today. Italian police get fast and furious with a new form of organ delivery.
A live look outside of Television City where we've got rain that's a-coming, but more importantly, wait until you hear how cold it's going to be overnight. All the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And we hear from candidates who just got off the campaign trail. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts right now.
Thanks for joining us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. President Trump continues to refuse to concede the race to Joe Biden a week after Election Day. The president's legal team continues to claim widespread election fraud as they challenge the outcome in several states, including Pennsylvania. Monday evening, Attorney General William Barr authorized prosecutors to investigate clear and apparently credible allegations of voting irregularities that might exist. Federal agency oversees presidential transitions has not provided funding or access to the Biden-Harris team. The Democrats are considering legal action. In last week's election, there were winners and those who were not able to come out on top. For any candidate running for public office often means making sacrifices in their own lives. And while it takes an investment of time, money, and emotion, even those who don't find themselves on the winning side say it's a great experience.
It was fantastic. I encourage anyone that even thinks they want to get involved in the process to get out and do it because, yeah, it worked out. But, man, I learned a lot from it. So glad I did it. Prepare family for it because there's always going to be that aspect of it, too. But it was a great process, and I'm still happy I did it.
Coming up during our 6 o'clock hour, several candidates who were not victorious share what their election night was like and how they're processing it all 1 week later. Missouri Attorney General joins 10 other states in filing an amicus brief in Pennsylvania Supreme Court voting case. They're siding with the Pennsylvania Republican Party and asking that the court overturn a decision from the state Supreme Court allowing mail-in ballots to be received 3 days after Election Day, even without postmarks. Oklahoma Republican Governor Kevin Stitt may see his first challenger for 2020. Oklahoma City physician and former Republican State Senator Irvin Yen has filed candidacy paperwork to run for governor in 2022. Chinese American Yen was the first Asian American elected to the Oklahoma legislature and has a reputation as a moderate. Joplin city officials see the results of a survey concerning the city's future. City manager Nick Edwards launched the listening survey earlier this year. Questions in it included, what is something Joplin could do better? And what would you like to see change in Joplin over the next 5, 10, and 15 years?
This is important for everyone to be engaged. We're going to have to rally together. We're going to have to come together around this information and have some significant dialogues about how to make the community better. If we just let this sit on a shelf, it's not going to be effective.
Officials say the survey received nearly 1,400 responses. The city manager and council plan to go over the responses at a November 30th retreat. COVID-19 cases are on the rise in Joplin. According to the Joplin Health Department, there are currently 332 active cases within Joplin city limits. The increasing number raises the question of whether the city will impose a mask mandate. Some residents are wearing masks into businesses and around town, while others are not. We observed people inside the Joplin Public Library and at Home Depot. It appeared that just under 70% of people were wearing masks inside the Home Depot. Just over 70% wore them in the library. Mayor Ryan Stanley says a mask mandate is possible, but they're looking for more regional support first.
I'd much rather and much prefer to do this as a region, and so we're really leaning into our medical community, certainly the health departments, both for the city of Joplin, but also for the county of Jasper and also Newton County, to kind of give us direction. And if we are moving forward with any kind of conversation, to do it as a regional approach.
You can find a link to Joplin's coronavirus dashboard with the latest numbers and information on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. The City of Joplin and Freeman Health System unveil plans for this year's Christmas parade. Cruise into Christmas is the theme, named to match the big change to the parade. This year it'll be drive-through style. Instead of floats driving down Main Street, they'll be stationary as spectators drive by. Freeman Health System is organizing the parade for the 7th year in a row and wanted to find a way to keep the parade but still stay safe. Emily Harrington has become the 4th woman to ever free climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park in under 24 hours. The 34-year-old is the first woman to do so using the Golden Gate route. El Capitan is a massive 3,000-foot granite face. She scaled it in 21 hours, 13 minutes. On her ascent, she slipped and got a gash on her forehead. She said it almost took her resolve, but she kept going and is now part of an elite group as the first woman and 4th person to ever free climb the Golden Gate route in under 24 hours.
It's kind of proud of me.
That's impressive. And the fact that she slipped, got a serious injury, and kept going.
You know, if you've seen the documentary Free Solo, if you've looked into this at all, which I've only looked a little bit, but I know that the level of prestige that a climb of El Capitan has, that is the top of the game, right? That, I mean, there's no more monumental task that you can take on in the climbing world than El Capitan. So that is unbelievable.
I know, I looked at the rundown. I thought the story was about Sergio Ramos. El Capitan, right? Right, he's El Capitan. Skywatch Storm Tracker, where we're picking up some lightning on this backside. This one right here, beginning to break up in southwest Missouri. This was elongated earlier this morning. This is the one that's bringing in the cold front. Got the lightning coming down in Chanute, then just east of Independence, and then east of Iola as well. There's your defining line. It's a slow moving system. It's in no hurry to drop our temperatures, and that's why, for the most part, it's been a delightful Tuesday morning, albeit a windy one, but still 69 from the Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin. Not a huge drop as of yet, but eventually we're going to see places, excuse me, like Yates Center get down to the 50s, and then as we move through, Joplin's still going to be sitting about 65 degrees here after the noon hour when the rain finally does break up. But after that, it just keeps on working down. So the bus stop forecast a little bit deceiving for the kids because they're going to say, I don't even need a light jacket. It's absolutely delightful outside. It's not getting to school. It's on the way home, where those temperatures are going to continue to drop. Now, after this band rolls through, our winds are going to die down a little bit, yet they're also going to shift and work in from the north, and that's what's going to bring us the much cooler temperatures that we see, even blizzard warnings up in the far upper Midwest. Not going to affect us. So here we go. After the rain pushes out to the east, watch the cloud cover go with it, and the temperatures drop down to the 40s after sunset. We keep on plummeting. We're talking about getting close to the freezing mark here tonight into Veterans Day morning. After that, we get a nice little rebound. Our daily high is going to be just about what we'd expect for November. So just got to get through this cold front first, and thunderstorm activity, not looking at anything severe today. Tanya and Jesse?
All right, up next, the latest on the COVID vaccine.
And we talked to several candidates who were in last week's election. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be back with more after this.
All eyes are on the Supreme Court Tuesday as the justices hear arguments on the Affordable Care Act. The latest lawsuit against Obamacare calls for the court to strike down the entire 2010 law due to an amendment that was added to the individual insurance mandate in 2017. This will prove a test for 3 President Trump appointees, Justices Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch. The law was previously upheld by the Supreme Court twice, in 2012 and 2015. However, only 4 current justices from those majorities are still on the bench. A new study has found it is extremely rare for newborns in the hospital to have a severe case of the coronavirus. Researchers looked at newborns in the hospital who tested positive for coronavirus within a month of their birthday. They found only 66 newborns out of 10,000 births contracted COVID-19. Of those, less than half experienced severe infection, 28 of them to be exact. 88% of the newborns were out of the hospital by the end of the study. 26% of the babies with the virus were born to mothers who were also positive. Well, COVID-19 vaccine may be here sooner than you think. An announcement from one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies bringing hope to both the financial and medical worlds on Monday. And just hours later, another exciting development from the Food and Drug Administration. Lauren Blanchard has the story.
Positive news out of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine trials, leaving markets happy and scientists and health officials optimistic around the world. The drug company announced Monday its vaccine trials are showing a 90% success rate at preventing COVID-19. This breakthrough comes as the Food and Drug Administration approved a COVID antibody therapy from pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly. That medicine, administered through an IV, is meant for patients not requiring hospitalization but who still need treatment for their symptoms.
When you get a vaccine, the idea is to make your body produce these antibodies. So here, this medicine aims to give you those right away so that you don't have to wait weeks to build them up yourself.
As the pandemic continues spreading at a record rate, President-elect Joe Biden is trying to unite the country ahead of the vaccine's possible approval.
The single most effective thing we can do to stop the spread of COVID is wear a mask.
Meanwhile, the international community is reacting to Pfizer's news with cautious optimism.
We haven't yet seen the full safety data, and these findings also need to be peer reviewed.
We hope that the first vaccines will be approved quite soon. Above all, I would like to point out once again, nobody will be forced to be vaccinated.
As Pfizer continues working on a vaccine, health officials stress Eli Lilly's antibody treatment is for emergency use only as researchers conduct more tests. To perform a life-saving public service, police in Italy felt the need for speed. Italian state police officials shared video showing their use of a Lamborghini to quickly transport a kidney in time for a patient's surgery. The force uses a Lamborghini Hurricane. It's a 600 horsepower Italian supercar capable of going 200 miles an hour. Now this one has been outfitted with an organ refrigerator for just this type of mission.
That's
cool. According to Reuters, the Lambo allowed the officials to make what would normally be a 6-hour trip from Padua to Rome in just 2 hours.
Jeez. Wow.
I like that.
I had to laugh about
Putting
the
speed to
middle
good
of that
use.
video right there when it was clearly turning into an ad for Lamborghini and how slow the police officer was putting the organ in the trunk. It's like slow motion, showing off the car. I'm like, yeah, here in a hurry. All right, let's take a live look outside of Television City. The clouds are just booking it right now from south to north because of our strong, strong south wind. Here's the big band of rain stretching all the way really from central Oklahoma up to the Great Lakes and the cold front on the backside of it. Lightning's been pretty limited. This is real hard rain coming down right here in the middle. Everything's going to progress from west to east in the colder temperatures on the backside of it. Hadn't had much of an effect on our 4-state communities as of yet on this Tuesday morning because the Freeman Health System sky camera still sits at a delightful 69 degrees. Even Yates Center, where we start to see a little bit of the blue, not much of a cool down. Sedan right there, but eventually it's going to push southeast. So it's going to be this Independence Neotiche Chanute line where you probably topped out for the day, and we'll slowly see it creep down. Not one of those where we're going to drop 30 degrees in 1 hour by any means. It's kind of slow moving, as you can tell. Central portion of the 4 states wants to sit in the high 60s all the way into the 9 o'clock hour. But this gives you an idea of what's coming here on the 24-hour temperature change as Dodge City and Wichita have just about dropped 30 degrees. Kansas City already a 20-degree difference from yesterday on that diagonal line. That's the one I was talking about. It stretches from Oklahoma all the way there to the Great Lakes. Let's check in on Tropical Storm Eta as it has actually backed off the Florida coast. Was sitting about right here yesterday and just decided, hey, I'm going to drop to the southwest. That's because there's a low pressure system and it lost what you would consider its steering mechanism, if you will. And so that's why it's going to meander here in the Gulf for several days as a tropical storm. Now, yesterday, that forecast track wanted to push it this way when it was still over here on the eastern portion of Cuba. But what we're going to see now is it try to make its way to land once again, but it's going to take several days. We're talking about Friday still hanging out, and then possibly a second landfall. Like I said, this thing could just stall out here all weekend long. But right now we'll go landfall not until Sunday, though, on the Florida Panhandle. Let's come back to the 4 states, talk about our cool down here. By the time we get to the noon hour, we've slipped into the 50s. We continue to drop, especially after sunset. Rain should be done by noon, 1 o'clock, and after these skies clear out, that's when we'll notice the big difference. Cloud cover actually helps with our temperatures, but look at where we're headed here as we get into the 30s, close to the freezing mark by early Wednesday morning. Now, we'll come back on Veterans Day, get plenty of sunshine with those clear skies, and work up into the 60s. And these temperatures on Wednesday and Thursday, that's about what we'd expect this time of year. Gets a little cooler on Friday, but I think the key factor here is, number one, some much needed rain, not only for today, but also Friday and Saturday. But after Wednesday morning, where we get close to the freezing mark, like these overnight lows, they hang in the 40s, so we're absolutely fine. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Now, there's something to talk about this morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. It's about Parler. It's a social media network that some have called the conservative Twitter. Founded back in 2018, growing exponentially. It's got more than 4 million users. Our own Kate Kelly takes a look at the app and its audience and talked with a 4-state Parler user.
Parler has been around for the past couple of years, but lately it's getting more attention. One user in Grove says she sought it out after feeling fed up with social media networks like Twitter and Facebook that flag or block content it deems false.
I like the concept of there being a little more freedom in the discussions or opinions or the sharing of free thinking ideas. And so it caught my eye the other day and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to look into this. So I did.
Parler identifies itself as a free speech and unbiased alternative to mainstream social networks, offering a platform with seemingly little moderation.
Parler says that they do not dictate what a user's content or stream would be, but yet they give the user tools to either mute or block other users, influencers, or sometimes even terms that people don't want to see.
Replies on Parler are literally called echoes, something that can be reaffirming but also dangerous. A police chief in Marshall, Arkansas recently resigned after he posted threats of violence towards Democrats on the site. Slaving says it's important to remember that there are always ramifications for what we say online.
Section 230 is really so important for people to understand, because while the social media companies get to create their own policies and procedures for review of what is and isn't appropriate content, that there are still definitely those legal actions that apply to all of them.
Westcott says she doesn't plan on deleting Facebook anytime soon, but she would rather fact-check things herself.
I do believe in being open-minded, even in my own conservative views. Just because I view things that way doesn't mean I'm not willing to listen or hear or ponder other thoughts.
In Joplin, Kate Kelly, KOAM News.
Many users on Parler are made up of individuals who have been banned on other social networking sites like Twitter or Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, KOAMNewsNow.com, and we actually have a comment from somebody who ran in to that problem, and I'm going to go down to Rachel Pullen. Rachel, I'm going to start with yours. Rachel says, it's funny to me that people who disagree with the Parler platform agree to censorship. I'm currently on someone else's phone leaving this comment because Facebook has kicked me off my account for something that I said in April that didn't align with their views. How convenient, Rachel says, during the election. Parler, here I come. Rachel is done with Facebook. Robert Johnson says, I think your question's misconstruing the situation. Parler is a free speech zone where both conservatives and progressives can interact. Facebook and Twitter, on the other hand, is a censored media where only one side, the progressive side, has uncensored access. And Laura Cliphon Wright says, I think having a separate one would only separate us further and can stir up more trouble. As far as our Insta poll goes this morning, how do you feel about separate social media sites? It's been kind of back and forth as far as the good idea goes. I've seen it as high as 55%. I've seen it as low as 38%. So right now, hanging at 45%. Well, 31% say bad idea. You got all morning to vote. KOAMNewsNow.com/vote. We'll be back right after this.
4-state communities are finding ways to continue a holiday tradition as we continue to deal with the pandemic. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details.
The sights and sounds of a great parade. They're what let you know that it's finally the holiday season filled with fun and tradition. Something we could all use after a tough year. And two communities are making sure they happen even if they have to look a little different.
This year is a lot about adapting and not just simply canceling events, so we wanted to adapt.
In Joplin, the theme for the 50th annual Christmas parade will be Cruising to Christmas, where the idea has been flipped on its head. This year, floats will stand still, and residents of all ages will be invited to cruise down Main Street and get in the Christmas spirit.
People can be safe in their cars, but still, entities and individuals and floats can enter the parade and have their normal festivities. So to me, it seems like a perfect balance under these extraordinary circumstances.
Pittsburgh is also doing a reverse drive-by parade through Lincoln Park, and they're encouraging a lot of creativity to make it a night that no one will forget.
Whether it's kind of putting on a scene as the people are driving by or doing more dancing even potentially could be something that is fun for our patrons to see as they drive by. So creativity is definitely where it's at this year.
Pittsburgh's also making all entries free so that no matter what, we can mark the end of the year on a good note.
Just not having it, of course it wasn't an option. This is a tradition.
Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
Now, neither parade will allow candy or handouts. Pittsburgh's parade will be on November 30th, and Joplin's is set for December 1st. It's time now to honor today's four-state hero, Donald Bay, a technical sergeant, E6 in the United States Army. He served in Vietnam in 1967 and 1970, where he flew gunships in the 4th Air Commando Squad. A native of Pittsburgh, Kansas, we salute you, Donald Bay, our four-state hero.
KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll, social media network called Parler, growing in popularity online. Our question to you is, how do you feel about separate social media sites for liberals and conservatives? We'll run our comments with Christopher Smiley. He says, what a great idea, actually asks. A platform for like-minded people. When one is faced with differing views, their views are either affirmed or questioned. One shows their beliefs, land/or faith by their substantive actions. Kenny Kimmel says, seems to me it'll just promote and enforce narrow-minded, one-sided points of view. Kenny asks, isn't that the problem in our nation now? Where's the opportunity for diversity and growth if you communicate only with people who already agree with you? As far as our Insta poll goes this morning, you can go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. 46% saying great idea compared to 31 who say bad idea, and then 23% of you say, don't mad at me. Once again, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. It's open all morning. Over to Jesse in studio. Okay, my friend.
Michael, well, cities around the country are facing an unprecedented problem when it comes to discarded PPE supplies. Masks, gloves, and wipes are winding up in streets and rivers and oceans, and according to experts, breaking down in a way that will be harmful to us in the near future. Laura Podesta takes a closer look.
A byproduct of the coronavirus crisis is this trash problem.
It definitely grosses me out to see all that trash that, who knows what germs it has on it.
Discarded sanitizer bottles, gloves, and face masks often end up on the streets, creating both a biohazard and an environmental hazard.
No one wants to touch PPE litter.
Right, so people are afraid that it's contaminated, so that means they're not picking it up from the streets.
Mark Benfield is a professor in the Department of Oceanography at Louisiana State University. He's been tracking PPE litter around the country since the pandemic began. Benfield says masks or gloves washing into sewers is a major concern. They'll end up in our waterways, where the plastic can break down and eventually be ingested by small aquatic animals.
If a human being eats a fish that's consumed lots of smaller animals, then those pollutants can get into our bodies.
To combat the problem, the mayor of Houston recently launched an anti-litter campaign called Don't Let Houston Go to Waste. The city will hold cleanup events that will target illegal dumping. And in Los Angeles, anyone caught dropping a mask or glove could be fined $250. But many are finding the solution lies with our choices, like wearing a reusable mask.
These things run like $20 a pop, so I'm not going to throw it on the ground anywhere.
Others say they're speaking out.
And then I say something all the time. I'm like, can you pick that up? Garbage can's right there.
And gently reminding their neighbors the location of the nearest trash can. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
The New York City Department of Transportation says the agency is currently engaged in a major public education campaign about PPE waste. They're posting reminders about proper disposal of PPE near hospitals, bus stations, and grocery stores all around the city. We'll be back with more after this. Well, there's a new airbag recall after one driver died. The latest announcement follows years of recalls involving tens of millions of vehicles. At least 17 people in the U.S. have been killed by defective airbags. But as Chris Martinez reports, there are still millions of them in vehicles today.
Volvo says airbags inside some of their older cars are potentially dangerous. The government released the recall after one driver was killed when parts of the airbag inflator exploded and flew out. The recall covers 54,000 S60 and S80 models from 2001 to 2003, sold or registered in 12 states, mostly in the South. The inflators were made by the company ZFTRW and are different than those from Takata, which caused the largest series of auto recalls in U.S. history, affecting almost every automaker. At least 63 million Takata airbags were recalled, but government regulators say around 11 million have not been fixed and could still be on the road. Police say this summer a woman in Mesa, Arizona died when shrapnel from the airbag in her recalled Honda hit her in the neck.
Take it seriously. Recalls are only about safety issues. They're only about something that is dangerous or a violation of federal standard.
Jason Levine with the Center for Auto Safety says many owners don't realize their vehicles have a problem.
You know, it's unfortunately common for recall notices not to reach the current owner of a vehicle. If you're the second, you're the third owner of a vehicle, the manufacturer might not have your information easily accessible.
That's why experts say it's important to visit safercar.gov. Anyone can enter their vehicle's VIN number to see if it's under a recall. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
That's really good information. Safercar.gov. Now, all repairs made under a recall are free. Experts say that you should check the VIN number when you buy a used car. Currently, there is no federal law against selling a used car with an open recall. Well, we're going to have a lot more coming up, including a conversation with Dr. Barbara Bollier. We'll have that and more coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 after this. Well, running for public office can be an exhausting endeavor, and while every candidate hopes to end up on the winning side of history, not all of them can. We spoke with several four-staters who ran in last week's election to see the culmination of their campaign, what it was like, and how they're processing their loss. Leading up to election night, Josh Shackles watched as the votes for him poured in.
I certainly sat with bated breath, refreshing my browser, looking for the results coming in.
The Democratic candidate put everything he could into his campaign for Missouri State Representative. And now, it had all come down to this.
Throughout the day, I received so many messages of support from people in the community, friends, family, people that I hadn't heard from in years. I heard from Republican families, people that only voted for one Democrat. And so, of course, that always makes someone hopeful that things might go their way.
But by the time all the votes were tallied, Josh found himself trailing his opponent. But he says something else seemed to stick out.
And to be honest, I was blown away by the number of people that supported a Democratic candidate. I ended up with almost 32% of the votes, nearly 5,000 people, which is an amazing number of people that felt like I was a good representative for them.
That same night in Crawford County, Kansas, Republican J.J. Carlinger watched as his campaign for sheriff also fell short. And yet, J.J. still feels it was a success.
Yeah, it worked. It didn't work out in my favor, but it worked out. Two people ran, and people had a choice, and there we go. So it worked out exactly how it was supposed to work out. So plenty of faith in the process, locally anyway. It worked out great. We got results that night.
There are more than 500,000 elected officials in the United States. In last week's election, tens of thousands of Americans ran for some of those seats, only to wake up on Wednesday morning without a new title. But on both sides of the aisle, there are ones like Carlinger and Shackles who not only respect the process, but they know you don't need a new business card to play a role in the place you love.
That's in my DNA. I'm always going to be active, always going to be part of the community. It started long ago. It's going to continue until the day I die.
Anytime that you decide to run for a public office, it is going to be a win or lose situation, and everyone that runs has to be prepared for that possibility. Ultimately, the will of the people will always prevail, and it's important to respect the will of the people and to continue to be a good representative of the people that chose to vote for you even after the election is over.
Well, since coming up short in last week's election, both candidates have made the most of their time. Carlinger is on vacation in Mexico with his family, a trip that he planned on taking regardless of whether he won or lost. And for Shackles, last week, Joplin City Council appointed him to the Conventions and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board. And this morning, we are fortunate enough to be joined by Dr. Barbara Bollier. And Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this morning. I think when we talk about running for office, I first want to start with, why did you decide to run for office?
You know, I have spent 11 years in the state legislature already and was asked to run. And the whole reason I ever ran for office was to serve the people. I'm a physician, and I really want to improve people's lives. And I saw an opportunity to help improve healthcare through public policy, which that's been accomplished already, but there's more work to be done. So that's what brought me to the table.
Well, do you mind describing for us, I mean, you were running for U.S. Senate. It's a much bigger campaign from a fundraising standpoint, from voting population standpoint. What was your election night like, and what was your Wednesday morning like?
You know, election night, I was with my husband. Because of COVID, we were still, my team was in the area, but we weren't all together. We had media in a room waiting, but they were all socially distanced and masks on. So it probably it was very different than most election nights for us. But, you know, I was totally at peace because I had done my best. And, you know, again, it's up to the people, and they get to pick. And that's what democracy is all about, and I'm good with that.
So that was my follow-up. I was going to say, you know, it sounds like you still trust the democratic process, even though it didn't work in your favor this time.
You know, what is not going right with the democratic process itself is fine, but we as a society have embraced, sadly, lying, and that, you know, I have a son who missed the Olympic team by one, and what he was always so proud of, he never cheated. And there are rules in place for when you're an athlete, that you get tested and checked, and you can't do that. If you do, you're out. And in our election system now, people are perfectly allowed to lie. And there's no check on that other than saying they've done it, and people don't seem to care. So I think we need to very carefully examine our democratic process and hold people accountable when they lie. That's what needs to change.
So as that, you know, as that, you know, that's something that, you know, it sounds like it wouldn't change overnight. So for anybody who's considering running for office in America moving forward, I mean, what advice do you have for them? But maybe on that front, but just in general, I mean, what does it take to run for public office?
Well, in general, besides needing an incredibly thick skin, you know, I've always done it out of a love for the people. And for me, it's not about the win or the loss. It's about the process, you know, not the quarry, but the chase, not the trophy, but the race. I won the race, and you need to be confident that you're winning your race, whether you win the vote or not. It's about offering yourself for good public service and being willing to do the job once you get there. And I've always done that. And, you know, it doesn't take being elected for me to serve the people. So, you know, I'm hard at it already. I am still a state senator, so there's a lot of work that still needs to get done. Absolutely. And I've already been busy, you know, just picking up where I left off from the campaign and helping people in our state. And that's who I'll always be.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning and talk about this. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe. And we will have this conversation and more on our morning show page at KOAMnewsnow.com. And we'll be right back on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. A week has passed since Election Day, and President Trump is still refusing to concede the race to Joe Biden. The president's legal team continues to claim widespread election fraud as they challenge the outcome in several states, including Pennsylvania. On Monday evening, Attorney General William Barr authorized prosecutors to investigate clear and apparently credible allegations of voting irregularities that might exist. Well, Monday brought welcome news in the worldwide fight against the coronavirus. Pfizer said early tests show its COVID-19 vaccine with an effectiveness rate of 90%. That's much higher than most experts had expected. The Affordable Care Act is once again on the docket at the Supreme Court. On Tuesday, the justices will hear arguments in the latest legal challenge to the national health insurance law. Some 20 million Americans could lose their health care coverage if the court strikes the ACA down. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Here's a final look at the Skywatch Storm Tracker. Heavy rain coming down in that band that stretches from central Oklahoma all the way to the Great Lakes. Makes a streak right through the 4 states, and look at what's happening on the backside of it. Temperature-wise, we're starting to see the big-time dip. Yates Center down to 49, Chanute 55. So know that it's coming, even if you're in the central portion of the 4 states. We're talking 50s by noon, 40s by sunset, 30s overnight.
All right. Well, thank you so much for letting us put the good in your morning.
We will be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.